We have an update on Brandon Saad and his status with the St. Louis Blues.
Hey, this is Brandon Chen. Subscribe to Lock On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I do have an update for you on Brandon Saad and the decision that he made might have you a little bit surprised. I want to talk about why the Blues are frustrating fans so much. And of course, the moves that this team has made so far this season proves to me one thing. We do have a lot to get into on today's episode, but I just want to remind you to subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube, or if you're listening on a podcast, audio only. Make sure when you're able to, if you're driving, don't do it now, but when you're able to, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest Blues news. Again, the Blues don't play for a little bit. Awful NHL scheduling. So we do have a lot to talk about when it comes to what actually is going on with this team internally. It is Wednesday, January 29th, around 5 o'clock by the time this is being filmed. So if anything happens afterwards, just know that I'm putting out the latest news that I have at the moment. But to recap yesterday, Brandon Saad, forward of the Blues, has been here for about 4 seasons. He was put on waivers after the Blues' 5-2 loss to the Vancouver Canucks. The Blues lost all 3 games at home. It was an ugly homestand, to say the least. And Doug Armstrong decided to address the media yesterday and talk about how this is unacceptable and, the typical Dougie A stuff that he does. So Saad was put on waivers, and when I filmed the episode yesterday, only 4 hours went by and no team claimed him. And I suspected, again, with that $4.5 million, I didn't expect any team to pick him up. And that's exactly what happened 24 hours later, 2 o'clock today, Central Time. Nobody picked him up. With nobody making the claim, Saad would remain in the organization with the Thunderbirds. But it was reported by Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman that the Blues and Saad were working to mutually agree on a contract termination. So the way that this happens is, and again, Elliot posted this an hour after, not even an hour after, nobody claimed him off of waivers, right? So to essentially break down what this means is that while they both, agreed on it, Saad will need to pass through waivers one more time to officially have his contract terminated and becoming a free agent. I know it seems a little bit confusing and maybe it doesn't make much sense to you, but the way that I see this from maybe an outside perspective, right? A perspective that maybe is not as biased, if I look at it, is he wants to play in the NHL. And I think that's not selfish of him. I don't think that's wrong of him. I think that he doesn't want to be in the AHL. He wants to be in the NHL. So I can 100% understand why he made this decision. Anyways, I'm going to tell you some more numbers about what this will invoke per Elliot Friedman, who does such a great job. I'm getting all the insights and did a great job explaining it all. So again, credit to Elliot Friedman. He said Saad will walk away from his remaining salary this season and the $3.6 million next year. He wants to play in the NHL. Both player and team felt this gave him the best opportunity to do so. Next year's salary and cap hit, $4.5 million, was a big hurdle for other teams. And that's exactly what I talked about, that it just was too much money for other teams to invest in a player who I believe is around the age of 32, so it just wouldn't make sense. Saad will go on waivers again, but he'll go on it tomorrow to terminate the contract. And once he clears, he will be an unrestricted free agent. So yes, once that clears, the Blues would be able to be clear to the contract and opening the cap space. So for the Blues, in I guess a selfish way, it's really good for them. And it's also good too for Brandon Saad because again 4.5 million was a lot of money and I know what you're thinking, oh, he's throwing away money. Not necessarily. I think that I mean, yeah. I mean, logically, yeah, he is, but he wants to play in the NHL and I don't think there's a price on playing in the NHL. You know what I mean? So I understand why he is doing it. But definitely one of those things where there's just a lot of now rumors circulating. Somebody did ask a good question. Could they re-sign him for the league's minimum? And someone said no. And I'm sure that's a question that maybe you thought of. And I just want to explain that it's not necessary. I mean, yes, it's about the money with him. It was a lot of money, but there was more problems than just money. And again, to be on the roster itself, money is a factor 100%, but you also need players that you could really see growing with the team, and I just felt like he couldn't do that. So I know, obviously this is one of those things where, it was unexpected, but it was also expected at the same time. I am curious though about other teams that might have been interested in him because that was one thing in Elliott's tweet that he said other teams just couldn't do it because of the money. I was curious and didn't understand necessarily what that meant. Um he is and just to put the total of money, he is sacrificing about $5 million. So I think it goes to show how serious he takes playing in the NHL is. And I don't think it's anything where um for him it wasn't like an option like, oh, the money's more important. He's made a lot of money throughout his career and I think that it's just one of those things where, like he was in the AHL like 12 years ago. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I just can't see him being an AHL player. So I get why. And I guess it's also a sign of disrespect. Like you're a two-time cup champion. You still have a lot of good leadership qualities and abilities. So again, it has nothing to do with that. I think it's the money. I think that if it was a couple million less, I think without a doubt, other teams would have picked him up. Maybe even the Tampa Bay Lightning could have utilized him. But now that he will be an unrestricted free agent, and again, once he clears, and I'm suspecting that will happen, um, I'm sure he's going to get picked up really quickly. I don't think he's going to be on the market for that long of a time. In terms of money wise, I'm going to say in the 2 millions. I can't see him getting any more than that. Again, nothing disrespectful about it, but just given his age and that he's not in his prime anymore, I can't see a team dropping that much. Plus, if a team was really interested in him at the rate that he was going for at 4.5, a team would have picked him up. But clearly they're not. So I think that this does work out for him. Obviously, it's sad to see him go, but I think that this was the best possible situation for the Blues because it's one of those things too. You also have to look at it. This allows the team, okay, the team to get more cap space relief. And a team that I am now seeing in circulation with being interested in him was actually the New Jersey Devils. And that just kind of came up on my feed right now as I'm saying all of this. Sometimes things get put out there and I'm like, whoa. So, yes, it seems like teams like the Devils and the Edmonton Oilers were both interested. Interesting for Edmonton. I didn't think Edmonton would want a guy like him, considering that the Oilers are one of the oldest teams in the NHL age wise. And it's not like having Brandon Saad and help them win a cup. But for the Devils, that could be an interesting pickup. I wouldn't be upset with him going to New Jersey, objectively looking at this. I actually think he would fit in very well with New Jersey. So interested to see where he goes. Let me know in the comments, where do you think Brandon Saad will go? Obviously, not with the Blues. That's the one team we can guarantee he won't be with. But in terms of all the other 31 teams in the NHL, I am curious, where do you think he ends up? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. I'm going to also talk about why the Blues are frustrating fans. It's not just the scores, it's about what is being said by one man in particular. But I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, come on, that's like icing on the cake. As an Eagles fan, I am hoping the Birds win. I know how we feel here out in St. Louis because they took away our Rams. So we're all Kansas City Chiefs haters, okay? So go Birds. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Right now, I feel like the Blues' organization is annoying the fan base. And I want to talk specifically about Doug Armstrong. I know how we all feel about Army. Some days we love him, some days we really dislike him. I'm not going to say hate because hate is a bad word, but sometimes we're not happy with the decisions that he made. I think that here's the thing, and this is why it's so frustrating and why it's so annoying and why sometimes it's kind of like, what is he doing at this point? If Doug Armstrong wanted to see Texier play more, wouldn't you just waive? And this was a comment from Zachary, and I agree. Wouldn't you just waive Sonny or Torpo? The logical answer would be yes, that makes sense. I don't get why Doug Armstrong is saying that waiving Saad allows for Texier to play more, but yet you still have bigger issues. That didn't make any sense to me. And now here's the thing too. He could have called up other players, right, from the AHL. Some guys are not ready. We're very aware of that. And I'm aware of that. I'm aware that a guy like Robertson, you can't call him up yet. He's not ready. And you would be doing him a disservice. But I think that when you look at other players on the Thunderbirds, right? And you look and you see how they're doing the season, and you have to at least keep somewhat of an open mind. And for me, and again, I know I'm going to be continuously saying this because, well, let's be completely honest. Okay. I am like a huge AHL fan. As I said, I watch an abnormal amount of hockey. And sometimes, yeah, I watch like the OHL, I'll watch the WHL, like I'll watch like really random like hockey. But obviously, I'm biased towards Dvorsky. I am. I can't help it. He's played 36 games this season for the T-Birds with 12 goals and 14 assists. And honestly, he's just one of those players that I really believe the Blues should just call up and give him a chance. I know I'm continuously saying this. I am. And I cannot deny that. However, I think that for me, that would be one player that I want to see. Now, I did mention Simon Robertson, right? Because again, he has potential. I don't think he's gonna. I mean, if you were to call him up, you'd put him on the fourth line, but I don't think he's gonna do much of anything. Um, but I just don't see him at least this season. But he does have the potential, and that's what's the most exciting thing about some of these players is the potential. And then, of course, Matthew Pekka. I mean, here's the thing, right? And I'm not hating, a little bit older, okay? Um, I just I don't know. I think if there was one player to call up, it would be Dvorsky. Now, Natika Alexandrov is still with the Thunderbirds. I know he was with the Blues for a bit, got sent down, whatever, we're good. Um, but yeah, like overall, I don't really see any of those guys being huge assets this season. But I think it was just Doug Armstrong's delivery of it maybe, and him saying, "Well, this week." Well, not for nothing, Doug, the Blues don't play this week. Like, they don't play. I mean, yes, like, theoretically, 7 days they're gonna play, but it's not like the Blues had a game tonight, right? The next time the Blues play is Friday. So, when he said that, I'm like, "Doug, really?" I understand that he wants to trust this group of guys. I get that. But it's obviously not working. I think that as a fan myself, I'm infuriated because we all knew this was going to happen. I don't think any one of us went into this season thinking, oh my gosh, this is a cup contending team. No, we all thought possibly a wild card team. If not, they're gonna finish in the middle again because that's what always seems to be happening lately. And I think that's where the frustration kicks in and takes place because anyone could have told Doug Armstrong, yeah, Brandon Saad, he's not going to be a huge factor to this team. Scott Perunovich, he's not going to be a huge factor to this team. And I don't think any of us are in the wrong for feeling frustrated. I think that that is a very normal fan reaction to have. I think that the Blues are not the same team that we saw advance, to the cup years back now. I can't even do the math. Oh my gosh, that was like 5 years, 6 years. It just, yeah, math is mathing, but too long. But we all knew again that team wasn't set up to be successful because we had a lot of 1-year contracts. We had a lot of older players on that team. So it wasn't like that team was going to be a dynasty in the NHL. It wasn't. It was a 1-year essentially. Um, it was a 1-year, let's go for the cup. But I think that right now, when you're looking at the Blues, you can even look at majority of these players and think, wow, they would do really well in the playoffs. I don't think that they would. I think that maybe a guy like Kyrou would do well in the playoffs. Robert Thomas, Binnington, Colton Parayko. Obviously, Holloway and Philip Broberg had experience going to the finals last season. But in terms of, I just don't trust this team. And I think that's what it comes down to. I don't. I think that signing Cam Fowler was a good decision to make for the price and just we know he's going to be here for this season. I doubt he'll be here next season, but I can't realistically see the Blues having this monumentous like turnaround this late. I mean, not for nothing. When the Blues won the cup, we were the worst team in the West at the end of January. It's the end of January. So let's take a look and see how we're doing because I can tell you this. We might be just one of the worst teams in the NHL, but um, that's because we're not playing games. So, I mean, hey, listen, it doesn't count if you're not playing games. So in the West, we're okay. So it's out of 16, obviously 32, 32. We're the 10th. That's actually not as bad as I thought. I mean, it's still not good, but we're the 10th worst team or 10th best team if you look at it objectively. But if you want to look at it throughout the entirety of the league, because I like doing that, we're 24 now because we dropped down as I said we were going to. I was kind of surprised that Utah didn't bounce ahead above us, but in terms of draft picks, and this is just like if they just went in order, right? San Jose would be 1, Chicago would be 2, Buffalo would be 3, Nashville would be 4, Seattle would be 5, Pittsburgh would be 6, Anaheim would be 7, Utah would be 8, and we would be 9. So I'm not too upset about that. I want to be within the top 8 in terms of draft picks, but again, that gives us a good chance of getting that. So, very curious and interested to see what will happen um as we approach the trade deadline, if Doug's going to just kind of let us tank or if he's going to try to have us win. I don't know. But you know what I do know? I know about my friends over at Gametime. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I was just there at all 3 of the Eagles' home playoff games, the wild card, the divisional, and the conference championship game, and it was so much fun. And for me personally, I'm kind of, thinking about going to another big game. But Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, as I said, I've been looking to go to maybe the big game, if you know what I mean. Maybe not, but we'll see. But I've been using Game Time to see all the app's cool features because it is the most easy app to use and navigate. So, this is what you need to do. You need to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Blues have made some interesting moves this season. And personally, I think that this all kind of began with trading P.O. Joseph. Now, I'm happy he's back with Pittsburgh. Obviously, he was there before, and I haven't really followed up to see how he's doing, but clearly, yeah, the Blues had to kind of do that. Then the Blues trade Perunovic, and now the move of Saad. This is telling me that this team is now noticing we have a problem. We have too many players on this team, on this roster, that are not producing. The moves tell me that the Blues are treading in the direction of let's try to get our cap space in a much better situation. That way, this off season, we can sign some bigger names. I am being cautious because as much as I want to say, well, prior to the trade deadline, I feel like that would set the Blues back if they sign bigger names like a JT Miller, for instance. A lot of people were talking about him or Elias Pettersson. I don't think the Blues are going to do that. I don't think it's actually smart for the Blues to do that. I think that's a really dumb decision. And in no way am I trying to call anybody that works in management of hockey dumb, but I do feel like for the best future for St. Louis, it would be to just eat this season and just go in with a full rebuild this offseason. I think that entering a rebuild can be really scary sometimes, especially for GMs and especially for, the fan base even. I think that signing Coach Montgomery to a 5-year contract, at least to me, was kind of a sign of, oh, maybe this team will enter a rebuild because that is a long, term contract for hockey, in my opinion. Um, and I forgot getting rid of Bannister too. The Blues did that. I think that they're hinting at a rebuild without fully saying it, We know in a couple seasons, Steiner will take over as GM. And I feel like this is Doug's last chance to really redeem himself in a sense, right? I think that you have to respect Doug no matter what because he did give us a Stanley Cup. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. But that has nothing to do with how I feel about this season or the past 2 seasons of missing out of being in the playoffs. That to me hurts. I love playoff hockey and I love Blues playoff hockey. I'm looking at my magnet. I have my Blues Stanley Cup Champions magnet on my desk and I'm looking at it right now as I'm speaking. And I just want to experience that again, going through a cup run. Like I just want to experience that again. And I feel like that may not happen anytime soon. And at this point, you have 2 options. You can finish as the middle of the pack kind of team like last season, right at 16, or you can try to get a really good draft pick and turn things around. That is to me logical. I think that you have to go with the logics over emotions. I think that sometimes it can be emotional. You know, let's be underdogs. Let's try to do this. Well, hold up. Hold up because sometimes that could hurt you more than anything. I think it's great that we have a GM that sees potential within our players that we already have. I do. I think that's an awesome thing to have. But let's showcase our players' potential so other teams can be interested in them and we can get rid of some of the bad contracts so we can look forward to maybe having a player that can come into this team and turn things around. You know, I always kind of joked about the Kachuk brothers playing on the Blues one day, right? I think Keith would love that. Obviously, Matthew and Brady, grew up Blues fans, and I think it would be more realistic for Matthew rather than Brady to play here in St. Louis. Um, but you saw the impact that Matthew had on Florida. You did. And I feel like while it's very unlikely that we'll get Matthew anytime soon, that we do need to maybe look at players that have that kind of Kachucky vibe. I like that. I made that a verb, Kachucky. I don't know. It's just like a thought to have. I think at the end of the day, the Blues need to get their act together. And I'm not just saying the players, I'm talking about the higher ups, the management. Because while, yes, the results of the games do fall on the players, obviously, it's also the GM, right? It's also the other management upstairs that we don't always see. It's a lot of factors. So, again, big question of today. It is, where do you see Brandon Saad going? Again, I want to remind you just to subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube, or if you're listening to a podcast and you're in a safe spot to do so, make sure you subscribe on that as well. And tomorrow, we actually might be able to get back on track and talk about the upcoming game that the St. Louis Blues, it's a late game too, by the way. Not too early, but it's against the Avalanche, and then they have Utah on Sunday. So I kind of want to talk about what those 2 games mean for over the weekend and who I think, in my opinion, might be a really good fit to St. Louis. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and like always, let's go Blues.